On this edition of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast, it's all good at Badlands Baseball Academy and a throwback to a chat with a recent birthday boy. Welcome to Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. I'm Joe McFarland. First off, I just want to say thank you for downloading and listening to the podcast every week. It's been a ton of fun giving you some of the cool stories we've been working on in a different fashion. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so you get it every week. Now that the new year is here, we can now officially start looking forward to baseball season, and that will be prime time for us, so you don't want to miss a minute of the action. And while you're subscribing, do us a favor and give us a rating and review. Doing those things will help us become more visible on each of the platforms, be it Google Play or Apple Podcasts. All right, now to this week's episode. We'll begin with our 1 through 9 series. Before Christmas, we started profiling the baseball academies here in Alberta. Our journey began in Okotoks at Dogs Academy, and then we went over to Vauxhall Academy. This time around, we head out to another rural setting. Oyen, Alberta is where you'll find the Badlands Baseball Academy. It's been operating since 2011, and with more on the history and what's to come for that facility, we chatted with head coach Jeff Amos. Jeff, let's talk about the very beginning. 2010, how did this idea for a new academy near Oyen all come to be?
Yeah, I think that credit would go to Doug Jones. And Doug is basically a guy from Oyen, and he was one of the original signees with the Vauxhall Academy, actually. And he was kind of the guy who got PBA up and running as well. So he kind of got those two programs up and going, and obviously they've done extremely well and they were kind of the original two, both from the college standpoint and the academy standpoint. And being from Oyen, I think he always wanted to kind of get something going in his hometown. So it took him, another 6 or 7 years, but that was kind of the goal, and he was able to kind of get some government grant money and stuff like that through his connections in politics. And about 6-7 years later after Vauxhall, this one got going. So that's kind of where it started, and how it ended up in Oyen, Alberta. Yeah.
It's been a fascinating watch, only because I've always argued that some of the best athletes I've ever seen have come from the smaller areas. And this is one of those areas that there's not a lot around, but at the same time, there's a lot of real good athletes out there. And I assume one of the big mandates of Badlands is to make sure that you're looking at all the local kids and seeing what you've got for talent there.
Yeah, for sure. Like, we don't have the big population. We don't have the big population within 2 or 3 hours of us. So we find that some of the best kids that we've had in our program have come from small little rural areas, even if it's not in Alberta, for maybe different parts of the country. Actually, one of the best kids that we had was actually a local kid. His name was Dawson Ruskowski. And when we came out here, me and my assistant coach, Elliot, we actually coached the regular high school baseball team. So I didn't know what to expect at all. I mean, a high school baseball team, Oyen, Alberta, I had never seen anything quite like it. The first practice, I actually had everybody show up in jeans and their fancy little white belts and, golf shirts and all that stuff. And this one kid, he was just a local kid, never played ball before, had the $30 Canadian Tire glove. And he said, well, what do you have to do to get in the academy? And we had just been out here for a couple of months, so we needed kids. We needed kids to fill our roster for September. And I said, I'll take you. I'll give you a chance. And he ended up going to North Dakota State, which is a Division I school, and never really played. He was just a raw athletic kid who had never really done anything except played hockey in Oyen here. And his parents kind of put him in the program just to try to get him out of trouble and just, kind of give him something to do and stay focused on. So you don't know what you have. Like, sometimes these kids just need a chance. And I think in a lot of cases, the kids in these small communities, they're so busy with farming and their everyday lives that they don't have these chances to gain these experiences or get the exposure they need. So you never know who you're gonna find in those little 1,000-person towns.
You bet. And one of the things that is also a big thing when it comes to smaller towns is just the way that the community is able to rally around, and whether it's school boards, that kind of thing. That's got to be a real important aspect of what you guys do.
Well, you depend on it. I mean, you depend on everybody in the community getting behind you, because you need billets, number one. And in a small town, billets are very hard to come by. And it's a big commitment. So, I mean, if you're looking at a 100,000 person town and you need, say, 20 billets, well, we've got a 1,000 person town and we need 16, 18 billets. So you definitely depend on it from that standpoint. You depend on it from, the sponsorship standpoint and the school standpoint. I mean, our school here with the academy, I think this year is around 90 kids. So our grad class is, I think, 33%, about a third of the graduating class. So from the school standpoint and the school board standpoint and the community standpoint, I think when you have something in a small town, you just depend on everybody that much more, just because you don't have as many options to get that sponsorship money or to get those billet families. So the people that you do have, you really depend on them. And for the most part, they've done a great job of stepping up and helping build the program.
And despite the distance that you guys have between yourselves and some of the bigger centers, you guys still manage to put on quite the schedule for the kids so that they're maximizing their baseball experience. Talk about some of the offerings you guys have, but beyond that is, what's a typical schedule like for Badlands?
Yeah, I think our schedule is pretty much like the other academies. I think we're all very comparable in that regard, where we try to play a 25, 30 game fall schedule. We try to get another, 30 to 40, plus games in the spring, take a good, winter trip down south, down to Vegas. Like you mentioned, our biggest challenge is travel, and that becomes our biggest cost. So we have to make sure that when we do travel, we're trying to play teams that extremely high competition. And that's one great thing about being out here, whether you're playing the Prospects or Vauxhall, Okotoks, Junior Dinos, whatever they might be, you're playing great teams all the time. So the kids are exposed to some of the better players in the country. The tournaments we try to go to, we try to make sure, again, quality tournaments. If you're going to spend a lot of money on hotel rooms and busing, and for us to go anywhere, it's going to be a $2,000-$3,000 day. So we've got to make sure that we're getting games that are going to give the kids some exposure and play the kind of competition that they're out here to play.
Mm-hmm. You guys also have the ability of really kind of having a baseball oasis in the middle of the prairie flatland landscape that you guys have. Talk about some of the facilities that you guys have been able to build out over the years.
Yeah, the field's kind of a work in progress. It's the field surface is coming along good. We want to do some upgrades to the dugouts and stuff like that, but the actual field's a real nice ballpark, especially for a town this size. But I think that our kids take a lot of pride in it as they get to look after it, and there's nobody else that uses it really except maybe a few days a year. So it's really our field, and that's something that I think our kids are excited about. And they have their locker room and their weight room and everything right beside the ballpark, and their games room and ping pong tables and all that stuff. And then this time of year, we're fortunate. Yeah, we get a real nice indoor facility. It's maybe 7 or 8 minutes out of town, about 14,000 square feet. It's all turfed out. And it's kind of funny because when you bring kids in for visits to recruit, you kind of pull up to this old abandoned building out in the middle of nowhere, literally where you can't see another building or car for miles and miles and miles, and they kind of just look like, what is this? And then you take them inside and turn the lights on, and they're kind of like, I can't believe this is here in the middle of nowhere. So we're lucky to have that. And again, we're the only ones who use that. So it's great that the kids can have a place of their own where they're the only team that gets that has that. They don't have to share it with anybody. They can leave their stuff out there all the time. And we use it 5 or 6 days a week. So yeah, for a little place in the middle of nowhere, we're really proud of the facilities that we've kind of built and what we have. I think we've really utilized our options as best we can, and I think the kids really enjoy what they have here.
What is the key for you guys to be able to bring up not just good ball players, but also good human beings at the end of the day? Because that's one of the things that I get out of these conversations with different academies is making sure that you keep a goal in mind, but also make sure that you've got your academics worked out as well.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest perk of the academies. And I don't think it's a single thing. I don't think you bring a kid in and say, hey, you have to have an 80% to stay on the field. You have to, make sure your marks are able to get you into this university or that university, because every kid comes in at a different academic level. And I think some of our best stories, and I'm sure the other coaches probably could vouch for the same thing, is that maybe you bring a kid in who's got 50s or 60s his whole life, but comes in and all of a sudden he's in a school where maybe you don't fall through the cracks, or you're with a bunch of guys on the bus who also have to get their homework done, where it's not, uncool, or it's kind of frowned upon to do your homework. I think in this scenario, you come in and you have to do your schoolwork to stay on the field. You have to, you have certain obligations from the academic standpoint. Your teachers are going to constantly check up on you. The teachers are going to constantly come to me and say, hey, so-and-so hasn't got their homework done. You need to sit them from practice today. Or, hey, you need to have a talk with them, talk to his parents. I think in a place like this, they just know that people are watching them. And I think when you're around a group of people that are all like-minded and have the same goals and are trying to achieve the same things, I think it's a lot easier to be a good student and focus on that stuff. Mm-hmm. As far as life goes, hey, these kids are moving away from home when they're 15, 16 years old in a lot of cases. Some of them are 17, but they're young men. And I think, again, it's not one thing that you tell them or you do. You just look out for them. And you remember, and I know that's a fault of mine sometimes I forget these kids are 16, 17 years old, and in some cases 3,000 or 4,000 kilometers away from home. And I think that's a big commitment from them. And that takes a lot of courage and a lot of guts. And sometimes I think we forget that. Mm-hmm. And we sometimes have all these expectations of these kids to get off to certain schools or certain states or whatever it might be. But I think the courage that they show leaving home at that age and coming out to programs anywhere in Alberta, I think deserves a lot of respect. And I think at the end of the day, that's a big part of growing up. If they're able to take that step and come out here and meet new people and put themselves out there to live with a new family, go to a new school, make new friends, and be around good people with good values, I think everything just kind of looks after itself.
There's a cool aspect of this academy and the others around this province is the fact that you've got kids who are, as you mentioned, coming from hundreds, if not thousands of miles away. Yeah. And we were talking about this before we hit the record button, that's a fairly unique aspect to what is happening here in Alberta, and you've been around sort of the countryside here, and I know you've been part of the T12 tournament as well. What is the word on the street about baseball here in Alberta, and what is the big draw that is allowing kids to, or giving kids the desire to come out here?
It blew my mind really when I first came out here. I didn't really know what to expect. I knew Vauxhall was out here. I had met Les, I think, once before, just when I was out here doing some touring around kind of thing. But moving out here from Ontario, there's a million elite programs. And when I say a million, I mean, it's getting so watered down, but there's probably now 100 of these programs that are in Southern Ontario alone. And there's obviously, from a population standpoint, a ton of good ball players back there. But I never really viewed Alberta as a baseball province or having a ton of baseball talent or a place where kids would go to develop, to get opportunities. But it is amazing. It's very unique. And I think a lot of the kids come from out east. A lot of our rosters are Eastern kids, and I know some other programs as well. And I think the kids really, from a competition standpoint, Alberta's gained a reputation, A, from an exposure standpoint, but B, if you want to play a high caliber of baseball, Alberta has become the place to do that. And if you want to get opportunities, again, Alberta has become the place to kind of do that. And I think, before even PBA or Vauxhall, I don't think that was ever really something that anybody would have thought of doing. But I think to the credit of the programs out here, you've now got an entire country and provinces willing to send their kids to these programs, further develop or to get opportunities. But it's just an extremely unique situation. And I think it's only going to get better. I mean, you see kids coming, like I said, from, whether it be PEI, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and a lot of their goals when they're 12, 13, 14 years old is to develop to be good enough to go to an Alberta academy, which is incredible when you think about it, because it just shows how far baseball in this province has really come.
And I suppose that really speaks to the graduation projections, but also the ability to move on. And one of the things that we've noticed over the last year and a half since launching Alberta Dugout Stories is that there's a lot of kids who are heading down to not just to junior colleges in that stateside, but there are some kids who are going right up to Division I.
Yeah. I mean, there's some great players. I mean, you see it at Tournament 12, and not just from Alberta. I mean, the country really does have some really good baseball players, and it doesn't matter where they're from. I just think as a country, baseball is continuing to develop and get better and better and better. And at the end of the day, like I said, it doesn't matter if a kid's from Ontario, Alberta, wherever. I mean, there's kids in this country that are getting opportunities now that didn't exist before. So yeah, there's a lot of Alberta kids now are getting great opportunities to not just go down to the States, but to go down to the States and get great schools, or to go down to get, to junior colleges and end up transferring to great schools. I think there's a reputation in Alberta now that if kids come out here and they're in these programs, that they're going to get opportunities to go down to the US. And I think, again, going back to the academic side of it, it's kind of a joint thing. If you have the academics and you have the skill, opportunities will present themselves. But yeah, I think Alberta's doing as good a job as anybody in the entire country of getting not just Alberta kids, but kids who come from here from other provinces down to the next level. Yeah.
You've had an interesting path to getting to Oyen, one that includes Miami and Toronto and now Oyen. And I'm wondering from your standpoint.
One doesn't sound like the other, does it?
One thing does, yeah. But you've had it's a fascinating path that way, and I wonder, what does it mean to you, being from a bigger community and a bigger center, to come to a smaller town and be a part of something that is quite unique? What does it mean to you to be a part of all of this?
Well, I think in any job or any business, if you have a chance to start something and build it from the beginning, it always has a little bit more meaning to you. And for me, I remember me and my assistant coach, Elliot Shrive, were actually at a Toronto Raptors game. And I got a call about this job. We were sitting there watching the game and we're talking about it. And I was doing a million different things at the time. And he kind of said to me, he's like, "You got to do it, Jeff." He's like, "Just go out and do it. Try it for a year or two." And I said, "Well, I'll do it, but the condition is that you've got to move out with me and be my assistant coach. And we'll do it together." So we kind of came up with a plan of a year or two, and 8 years later, we're still here, and it's been a blast. I mean, when you have a chance, like I said, to build something and to see it kind of develop, I mean, the first couple of years were rough. I remember we had Vauxhall up here for our first ever home game, and I mean, I had to apologize to Les. His kids were getting such a big workout running around the bases on us. They were... and I didn't know what to expect, but I think as the years have gone by and we've got better kids in, and not just better players, but we're able to get really solid people in here now, and the community's really got behind it. And I think, it's something that I know we're really proud of. And I think the kids now take pride in being a part of the program, and you see them wearing their clothing around a little bit more, and they're excited to tell people where they've signed. And I think from that standpoint, coming from a big city and seeing something develop in a small town from really nothing, yeah, it's something that, hey, if I didn't enjoy it and wasn't proud of it, we wouldn't be here 8 years later. But I think it's something that we want to continue to try to build and make better. And it's awesome seeing kids move on and get opportunities.
If you were to get your crystal ball out, and let's say 10 or 20 years down the road, where do you see this academy going?
I mean, that's a really tough question, just in the way that I don't think I envisioned where it is now, even 5 or 6 years ago. So I think we'd like to get a nice, indoor facility moved right to town. I think that would be a big thing. I think we'd like to, continue to maybe up our roster a little bit. How to do that, who knows? I mean, like I said, billets is a big challenge. I think down the road too. I mean, we'd really like to keep presenting more and more opportunities for rural Alberta kids. I think right now we bring a lot of kids in from out east in different provinces, and we do have a lot of Alberta kids. But I think in a perfect world, Alberta academies should really support Alberta kids. And I think that's something that, as we continue to move forward, we want to try to promote ourselves and try to provide with opportunities to some of these rural local kids, because I think that's what we are. And we're never going to be the 1 million person town. We're never going to have the massive population to draw from. And I think that's okay. So I think we want to just really be proud of what we are and keep trying to build on what we are and who we are. And that's a small town with a very good high school and great teachers and good community support. And wherever it goes, it goes. But I don't think it has to become anything more, anything special, or I think that's what's unique about these academies out here is that every one of them is different. And I think that's a really good thing because kids have choices. And I think that's something that I think that's why they're all successful in a way, is because they are different. And I think if they were all the same and we all tried to do the exact same thing as all our competitors, then probably wouldn't do as well.
It's been great to watch the Academy grow over the last 8 years. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys have coming up in the future, Jeff. I appreciate the time and the insight into Badlands Academy.
All right. Thanks a lot, Joe.
As you've noticed on our social media platforms, we like shedding light on birthdays of Major League Baseball players and coaches with Alberta connections, past and present. One of those happens to be Ron Kittle. The now 61-year-old came to Alberta with Lethbridge Dodgers in 1977. In 1982, he returned to star with the Edmonton Trappers. He hit .345 with 50 home runs and 144 RBIs that season. It was insane. And last summer, Kittle returned as part of a venture done by the Western Canadian Baseball League's Edmonton Prospects. He sat down with our very own Oyen Wilson to wax nostalgic about his time here in our province, and here's just some of what he had to say.
I'd like to start with Lethbridge. Just tell me a little bit about your playing time there and what, that of course was before the injury, like everything was kind of on the upswing and looking up. Tell me about your time there and just coming to Canada as well.
Well, you know, I got hurt in Clinton, and when the rookie season started in Lethbridge, I had no idea where Lethbridge was, Alberta, or Canada at the time. You know, I'm just a young kid living in my house, you know, living in my own space, and I get there, and we were overwhelmed with the people there. You meet the new players, you know, they're out of college, you know, some of the draftees. I find a place to live. It was kind of funny. Is I had a Hungarian lady that I rented a house for $200 a month.
Yeah.
And I go, $200? She goes, okay, I'll take $100. I said, no, I was excited for $200. It didn't matter to me, but she wanted to cook for us, and she put so many spices in the food I couldn't eat it. So we ate it. What was it, A1 Submarine or something like that?
Yeah, that sounds all right.
We ate every day there.
Yeah.
The same place. I ate the same sandwich, whatever it is. But you know, the community was nice. The ballparks are nice. You know, we went to Medicine Hat, Calgary, all these other places. I mean, it was a third world for me, and I was away from home for really the first time. I had a great time. Great experience with everybody.
Yeah. Talk about Edmonton. This is why you're here. 50 home runs at any level is a huge achievement. That was like just such a phenomenal year for you. What clicked and what just kind of went right for you?
You know, I said it earlier. I should have made the big league team. I had a great spring. I batted 15 times. I hit 9 home runs.
Yeah.
I mean, that you should be on a pedestal somewhere. You know, I get sent to AAA, and I'm a little frustrated, a little pissed, and but I get there and. I was ready. I had to prove somebody that I had something to do. Yeah. And I went up here, and mostly guys in a triple, they'll get called up by that time, you know, somewhere. But when you're paying X amount of dollars back and forth, and Steve Kemp was in front of me in left field in Chicago making $1 million, I wasn't going to get a chance to do anything. So I stayed here. I played hard. I did what I could. You know, I wasn't trying to make a race. I mean, the year before, Gary Holly hit, 26, 27 home runs, and I hit that in the first month and a half of the season. And, you know, and besides hitting 50, I wasn't pitched. I mean, I was pitched around a lot. Yeah. I mean, that was balls behind me. You know, you had to go out there and try to focus, and it was tough. Yeah. I mean, because they didn't want to give you nothing out there to hit, and there was a guy named Buster Keaton, played for the Giants organization, and I hit 2 or 3 home runs against him. Yeah. Finally, he used to tell me what pitches were coming, and I would pop them up because I'd get a little bit too geared, and he goes, I finally figured it out. Now I don't pitch you no more.
How does it feel to be back? Like, is it a lot of the memories coming back? You know, you've been back
a couple times. You know, I said it before. I wouldn't come back here if I didn't like the people or the community or the city or the ballpark. Yeah. You know, it's kind of special. Yeah. You know, like I said, seeing Mel today, who's had a couple health issues and strokes, and you know, and I'm looking at, you know, I called him. He didn't know I talked to him at all. Yeah. He couldn't remember that. And Al Coates, as good as there is on as an announcer out there. Yeah. But you know what? If he goes somewhere else, his story doesn't stay here. Yeah. And it's just another guy going around. Yeah. But and Al, who, Alan talks everybody, come up here, he's the one that started the ball rolling. What do you think? I said, Al, I'll help you if you got time, or I got time, we'll figure it out in my schedule. But come in here, it's a great community, great city. Yeah.
I have to hear, it was referenced on the radio, you pitched batting practice to a pretty good hockey player, Wayne Gretzky.
I mean, it was so funny. I'm here, and Peter Pocklington owned the team. So we came in, and I'm throwing to this little blonde-headed, skinny kid, and he's hitting the shit out of the ball, excuse my language. Yeah. And it was Wayne, and I did it almost every other day when he was around the ballpark or when we were home. And then he gives me my award in Chicago. And they go, Wayne Gretzky? It's his last name.
Yeah.
I didn't.
You didn't know at the time that it was?
I didn't know. I knew he was a hockey player. His name was Wayne. I didn't pay no attention to it.
Were you like, why is this guy getting preferential
Well, no, it was just me and him, because I was always hitting early.
Yeah.
And he would throw to me, and I would hit shit, out of the moon off of him. He goes, just don't hit me.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of special to get to know him.
I also heard you talking about Jasper a bit. Beautiful area, and did you get out there a lot?
Every time we had an off day, I would just get in my rent-a-car and I would drive up there.
Yeah.
If I had a choice just to fall down and live somewhere and nobody will know me anywhere, I would go there. I think it's one of the prettiest places on the planet.
That'll do it for this week's edition of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. We want to thank Badlands Academy's Jeff Amos and former Lethbridge Dodger and Edmonton Trapper Ron Kittle for joining us. Next week, Ian sits down with Drayton Valley's Shane Dawson and Toronto Blue Jays catcher Danny Jansen as they were in Calgary this past weekend as part of a Strive Baseball Program clinic. Until then, thanks again for listening to Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast.